Hello, 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 and welcome to another live coaching live stream. I just got back. I have been in the wilderness away from phones and cellular reception. So if you sent me a message, an email, something, that's why I haven't responded. Better excuse than usual. Yeah, I'm back in Cape Town and I haven't checked the forecast yet. I don't know what's coming, but I'm hoping that next week is going to be windy, and then the week after that as well, because that is the masterclass week. So I will be teaching a windsurfing masterclass the 22nd to the 28th, and there's still actually one spot. So if anyone's interested, let me know. And otherwise, I'm just gonna jump in to the Facebook group coaching. Hey, Axel. Axel has a post. I think Axel is the first post that's up, actually. Looks like you've been getting a lot of windsurfing. Love it. Matt. Hello, Matt. Good to see you in the chat. Matt is coming to Cape Town. That's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward. All right, everyone. I'm going to jump into the Facebook group. You guys know how it is. If you've got a question, pop it in the chat. Jorg. Hey, Jorg. Jorg with the cold water session in Sweden. Nice. All right, I'm gonna. Hey, Tamaz. Tamaz, how's your arm? Tamaz had a um, pretty bad accident, broke his arm. Hopefully it's good. Max. Ooh, no wind. Hello, Facebook. Yeah, Cape Town is warm, hot. Axel had 3 sessions this week. Suna, good evening. Hello, Axel. Nice. A freeze hole for a refreshing session on the Baltic Sea. That's hardcore. The January sessions, no matter how much the sun is shining, are very hardcore. So right on. Good job. All right, I'm going to get the Facebook group loaded up. Get the page refreshed. And we can jump in. You guys know the drill. Hey, Graham. Welcome, welcome. Got a board and a 3-7. So Graham also has a post, I believe, in the group. Dennis. Cold weather, no wind. Hey, Ragnar. Ragnar also has a post. Nice. All right, I'm going to get to it. So I'm going to refresh this and jump into the Facebook posts. All right, new post first. All right, so first up, we have a post from Axel. And so this is Portac, and he's used to starboard tack training, but most of the training that he's done with me is in Portac. And it was very cool to see Axel's improvement on Portac through the years, to the point where I had in the masterclass in Denmark, we had 2 back-to-back days, starboard and Portac, and he almost looked more comfortable on Portac. So now let's check the video and see. We saw a starboard tack session from him last week. Let's see how the Portac sailing looks. Looking good so far. So in his post, Axel said that wave selection was one of the bigger issues that he had, and wave selection is going to be important no matter what the wind direction, right? Wave selection is really more important than anything else going on. So if you want to focus on one thing, wave selection and where you are on that wave is going to be pretty important. So that looks solid, Axel. I don't have much to comment on that turn without seeing it from another angle. All right, so what happens on this one? So you're looking down the line. We like to see it. Looking down the line. Coming into the turn. Carving around. So there's a couple things I would like to see different here. One is that you could go more vertical on the bottom turns. So this bottom turn is a little bit drawn out, and you can think about that by thinking about where you're looking with your head. And so when we're going into the turn, you can think about looking a little bit more around the clue rather than down the line. Go just a little bit more vertical, more of that U-shaped bottom turn rather than that wide C. And then the cutback, let's make sure that we're getting some separation between the body and the boom. So some good pressure here, but we want to make sure that we're hanging rather than squeezing on the boom. So really getting that hang on the boom, and you can even push out with that backhand rather than pulling it in, which then allows the rail to turn. So sort of those are the two biggest points that I see on that clip. I like this position. So much in contrast to the last clip, very sheeted out. The body's much farther away from the boom, and that works a lot better for you. We can't tell exactly how if this bottom turn is more vertical or not. I don't think it is, but the timing looks good. From what we can see of the wave, it looks like you're really in the pocket of the wave. Uh, and this is a jibe. All right, let's watch the 3-turn wave. All right, so we unhook, watching down the line. Okay, a little bit early on the wave. That one looks a little bit early. Again, it's hard with this angle, but it looks a little bit early. I like the active body position. In general, we don't want to be looking too much where we're going in front of the boom here, because that means that we're doing this really long bottom turn. We want to be trying to go shorter on the bottom turn, narrower. But it looks like that turn is a nice turn just from what I'm able to see here from this view, right? What I'm looking at is I can see looks like there's a certain amount of rail engagement. The position of your front hand and backhand also are right, butt is low, like you're sitting down. Again, what you want to happen. So a lot of that positioning looks really good, but going a little bit more vertical will help. And one of the ways to really do that is to not look around the front of the boom as much as the back of the boom. Can depend, right? Especially in offshore conditions where you're really heading to a spot down the line. But here you're looking more around the boom. There's more vertical, and yet we crash. So let's see what's happening here. Let's see if we can break this down. Trying to go more vertical. Hard to see. This is hard to see without being able to see the rest of the wave, but it looks like you're going too early. And so there's not a clean enough surface on the bottom of the wave for it to work. So again, I can't see the wave, just the angle that we have. But I would say that going later would be helpful on this turn. Does that make any sense, Axel? If you remember this wave, could that be the case? Going later also creates more space here on the transition of the wave to the flats, because it's then more of that bowl shape rather than a flat shape. And so then it's easier for the board to carve on the rail and initiate that turn rather than catching the rail, which is something that looks like it's happening here. So let me know if that makes sense. And we'll go to the last wave, 1.5 turns. Boom. Looking for that high five. One of the big things we talk about is getting that high five moment where the bottom of the board is angled so that it's perfectly perpendicular with the power of the wave. All right, we get one more turn. Boom. That one looked pretty aggressive. I like this placement. I'm not sure exactly what happens while you're going off the wave, but the lead up to that is all really good. So that's more positive than not. So Axel, I think, hey Greg, by the way, and Steen, hello, hello. So Axel, yeah, you may have just hit a bump, but I think going later on that turn would have helped. In general, I would say try to go more tight on your bottom turns. So looking around the clue more is one way to do that, getting that U shape, and then trying to exist in this cut back position where you're sheeting out with the backhand, the butt is low, you're sitting down, because that is going to be the position that gives you the most carve in your cutbacks. Hey, Christoph. Hello, hello. All right, so let's check this out. So this is from Graham, and he says that he's been trying to learn frontside turns in dead onshore conditions. That's hard. That's hard. Dead onshore frontside wave riding is the most difficult kind of wave riding. So I'm not surprised that it hasn't gone too well. Uh, yeah, hitting the boom on the water or digging the rail on the bottom turn, maybe getting the rig more backwards. Yeah, so getting the rig backwards, as in sort of clue first sailing, as if you're sailing back out again, will definitely help. But dead onshore is very hard. Um, yeah, dead onshore is very hard. All right, let's check this out. Let's check this video out. So Graham, where is this spot? This is beautiful. All right, so let's see this first clip. Let's make this big. Let's make this even bigger. All right. Beautiful spot. And there the clue is hitting. So you want to think about these bottom turns like a jibe. And when it's straight on shore, it is very similar to a jibe, where you're just not flipping the sail and you're coming out clue first and switch stance. So the beginning, you want to sheet in, but then pretty soon you want to start sheeting out aggressively and bringing that sail back towards the tail end of the board. And so that backhand is coming down, that front hand is coming up, and you're going to be really sheeting out. Um, but it's hard. It's hard. Straight dead onshore wave riding is incredibly difficult to do, uh, but worthwhile challenge. Something I would recommend mixing in with this, Graham, which maybe you're doing, is a good dose of backside wave riding, because onshore conditions do lend themselves to backside wave riding. Backside wave riding can be really fun, and it also teaches you a lot about timing, placement, wave selection, which then can transfer over to frontside wave riding, because those fundamental skills are incredibly important. They're more important than the technique. So my first comment, without seeing more, without knowing whether you're already doing a lot of backside wave riding, is to focus on the backside rides. Try to do some backside aerials, do backside carving turns, because that will be a lot easier on these waves. When you're really as onshore as this, like you can see it in this example where it's so onshore and you're coming around trying to bottom turn, but then the wind is just stopping you before you can get to this section. Now, that doesn't mean that it's impossible to ride these frontside, but it's a lot easier going backside. All right, so just checking the chat. So that's in Glencairn, beautiful, and you are doing lots of backside riding. Okay. Um, yeah. So for the front side, think of it a lot like a jibe. That might help. And then really where you're trying to come out clue first, where then it's like you're sailing the other direction. Um, the other thing that can help is getting really low in the knees, because then if there's a pull on sail in a weird way, or you hit a gust or a chop, you've got a spring to help absorb it. But these conditions are tricky. Straight on shore is going to be the trickiest kind of riding for frontside riding. Um, so Alex is saying less weight on your back foot, lean forward more. You can work on transitioning the sail to clue for a switch stance. Another thing that you can do. So, like I said, jibes. Thinking like a jibe is really important, but you could actually switch the sail. And so this is something that you'll see pro riders do sometimes when we're competing in spots that are straight on shore, like silt. And how that works is, so in this, I'll use this wave as an example, is you flip the sail here, like you're jibing, but you keep your feet in the straps, and then you're sailing, switch switch stance on the other stance. So it's a little bit easier because then you don't have to be fully on the rail on sailing clue first. And then you can hit the white water, get that high five moment, and then flip the sail back around again. It's a lot easier than you think it is. So that's also something that I would try in these conditions, and I think you'll have a lot of fun. Um, do I have an example? Because you might not know what I mean. So let's see if I can find an example. So this is an air taka, which is not going to be what I'm recommending, but I think how he gets into this is what I mean. So this is what I mean. So you can see this is in Pozo where it's very onshore. He's going into the bottom turn, but instead of dealing with the clue first bottom turn, look, he flips the sail, and then suddenly he's got his feet still in the straps, but he's got the sail flipped around, and then it's just a lot easier to sail, and he's able to hit the wave. Now he goes into a big spin. What I'm recommending is just hitting the lip, hitting that white water. But maybe we can see an example where he comes out of it. No, these are all crashes. But let's see if we have another example. Because Graham, I think that I think this is mainly a backside wave ride, which is not what I'm trying to show. Yeah, I'm going to get out of these videos. But flipping the sail around, I think, is a really good exercise, one, and two, a way to start figuring out these frontside turns at this spot. It will also help you with the timing because it's a lot more forgiving. Sailing in that position, clue first, as you're finding when you're coming into the wind hard, is really difficult. And so if your timing's off or you hit a gust or a chop or anything, you get thrown off. Whereas if you have the sail flipped around, the whole setup is a lot more forgiving. All right, next up, we have Ragnar working on his 360s on the ice. That's pretty cool. As I've already told Ragnar, this looks amazing. I want to try it sometime. Really cool to see the application for training actual windsurfing moves. Pretty cool. So he's doing two 360s in a row. Here's the second one. Yeah, this looks good. And this looks like really good training for on the water. So I like that. I'm a fan. All right, next up, we've got another question from Ragnar. At his spot, he sails close to the beach for the last turn, and you need to turn or jibe or tack in front of the beach break, very close to hitting the stones. Any advice to manage the last turn? Um, Yeah, it depends. So I think you want to get off before you're hitting your fins. Sometimes in places like Tenerife, for example, El Cabezo on low tide, we'll finish a wave ride and the water is really shallow. And what I'll do is instead of standing on my board, is I'll kind of finish my turn, my last turn, just fall back in the water on my back, let the wave pass under me, flip the sail around in the water, have my nose pointing back out to sea, sit in a water start position, and sail a few meters out like that in that position just to get away from the shallow water. And I think that's probably the most effective way to handle a situation like this. So again, you finish your last turn, fall on your back or in a way that you let the wave pass under you, and then you're under the board, and then you kind of do a jibe in the water where you're then pushing up on the mast hand, pulling in on the clue hand, getting the nose spun around, flipping the sail, pointing back out to sea. And before you stand up, if you're worrying about hitting your fins, then you can just sit in that water start position. Now, in Sweden, I think you don't have sharp reef and sea urchins like you do have in Tenerife or other places. So you could even just then walk and push your gear out a few meters. But getting that distance, and again, normally it's only a couple meters, makes a big difference for saving your fins. All right. Next up, we've got a post for Magnus, who's trying to improve his backflip rotation. And the first thing that I see in this sequence is that he's under rotating, which is great because it's a lot easier to fine tune an under rotated rotation rather than an over rotated one. Basically, if you're over rotating all the time, you have to really step back and go back to square one. And I think it can be really difficult for people. And I mean, there's some of you guys in the chat who are in this in this situation to then relearn the beginning part of the back loop. And so this looks really solid as a beginning. There are a couple things that I would look at. I really like, so in this second sequence, I think that this positioning, this body positioning, the tight legs, the sail back, looks really solid, and we can see the sail coming forward in this windshield wiper position, which is exactly what you want to be doing. I think that this wave is really difficult to get the jump off of, and a similar thing here as well. Like I can see where the nose is pointing, and it looks like the wave is not a very steep wave, and especially in these conditions where it doesn't look that windy, you really want to have that steep wave. If it is really windy, you can use the wind to ride the wind and get in that steep position. So Magnus, I think that your rotations are looking pretty good. There's three things you can do. The first is what I just said, look for steeper ramps. The second is to take off more upwind on those ramps. Now, it's difficult to see from these photos exactly where the wind direction is, but I think you want to be taking off more in this line, which then when you go through the rotation, if you're just that little bit more rotated, when you're at this point, you're basically landing the loop. It's amazing with back loops how upwind you can and often should take off. I'm pretty sure in these kind of conditions, you need to be taking off more upwind. But this body position looks good. And then the third point is on the last part of the loop, really using your head and your upper body to try to spot the landing. So your positions look really good, but it looks like your head, especially here, is still looking. It's not looking where you're going to land. It's I can't tell with the hood exactly where it's looking, but we should see your face right here, and we don't. So that means you're either looking here or at the sail, and neither of those are what you want. So you really want to be actively looking with the head where you're going to land. So the three things that are going to help these back loops: steeper ramp, take off more upwind, and really using that head and upper body to try to look at your landing. So when you're at the apex of the jump, so like about here, you want to be looking at the landing and you look at it the whole time until you hit the water. All right, let's keep going. Oh, that's it. We're caught up. Let me just make sure that there's nothing I'm missing. All right, that's it. Awesome. I am going to call it a night. It's been a long weekend and I need to jump in the shower. I will see you next week, Sunday. I hope I get some wind. Again, I haven't checked the forecast. I haven't had any cell or internet reception in a few days. So I've just gotten back. I got a shower, check the forecast, answer my unanswered emails, and hopefully get on the water this week. I'll see you next week, Sunday. Post your photos, questions, videos, all the above in the Facebook group. I look at everything that's posted, and I hope to see a post from you, and I hope that you get on the water and have a good week, and I'll see you next week.